Well, if you're watching this video, I'm sorry, it is again not the reviews you're looking for. We've got a little bit longer, and then I'll be back, and everything will go back to normal. As a matter of fact, we've got 6 movies that I know of off the top of my head that we have to get to before we even get to the movies that actually come out on the Friday that I come back. So if you're watching this video, chances are right now, I'm at Halloween Horror Nights with my dad and my stepmom. This is gonna be a fun night, I'm not gonna lie. But, since I'm not here, obviously I'm at Halloween Horror Nights enjoying all the festivities. AJ is going to bring you a list of limited release movies. So, AJ, take it away.
Well, we're going to start with Begin again. The ridiculous title, after it went to TIFF under the name Can a Song Save Your Life? And it got a lot of attention because it is a music-based movie that is the second movie from the director of Once, the writer and director of Once.
Yes.
You can also apparently find it under the title New York Melody, which makes sense in the when you watch the movie, but it's a pretty dumb title too. I think probably forever I will just call this movie Can a Song Save Your Life?
This kind of reminds me of that Can I Borrow a Feeling song.
So, we get the same story from a couple of perspectives is how it starts off. It's like the first half hour or so, really. We start off and we see Keira Knightley sitting in a bar looking sad. And then her friend, her British friend, is going to, the guy from One Chance, I forgot his name now. I think he's going to be a talk show host soon, too. But anyway, he is on stage, and they're in the bar, and then he says, my friend here has a song that she'd like to play for you, and she does the, oh no, I couldn't do that, okay, I'll do that, and gets on stage. And performs, and it's great and everything, and then we see Ruffalo at the back of the bar watching her, really excited. And this will come back a couple of times. First we get to know Ruffalo. Ruffalo is dealing, he has a lot of things going on. He's got a drinking problem, he is in charge of a lot of shitty demos, he could be about to get fired. His daughter, who is Haley Steinfeld, is really not exactly behaving in the way he approves, and he has a really, really weird relationship with his wife, who is Catherine Keener. Yes, Begin Again is a sequel to Where the Wild Things Are. This is where their relationship that we saw briefly in Where the Wild Things Are became. Now, but Max Records is nowhere to be found. But his name is Records.
Yes.
So, okay. Anyway, before I confuse you any further, we start with him going to work, and like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, his business partner is the artist formerly known as Mos Def, who is going by his real name now. And Ruffalo is driving around town on his way to work, and he just has nothing to work with because he's listening to these demos to try and find somebody to basically represent, and they all suck. It actually gets to a point to where I liked this line. He listens to a demo, and he presses eject. He takes the disc and screams, "Get fucking out of my car!" and just throws it out the window on the busy highway.
Wish it would have hit somebody, that'd be funnier.
Not get out of my fucking car. Get fucking out of my car.
That's like a Lewis Black way to put something.
Yes. So basically, he's more or less going to be fired. Because there's just no way to, because Mos Def's character has this idea, it's actually kind of a cool idea, about having artists do commentary tracks on their albums.
Not bad.
But Ruffalo hates the idea and basically says, go fuck yourself. So he basically gets fired. So he at least uses this time to try to he and his wife have a really weird relationship. They still wear their wedding rings. he can still come in without knocking. Every now and then, he just casually takes a shower like he lives there. And this is just kind of a thing. Like, she's not really for or against it. It's just kind of a thing that happens.
Okay.
So, really, they're more or less still together. He just happens to not live there. That's pretty much it. They still have occasional bits of romance that kind of come and go. I don't know. And then, of course, you have the, he has to bond with his estranged daughter. This is the second time this year Haley Steinfeld's played the estranged daughter after 3 Days to Kill. That dresses inappropriately. Wow, she got typecast this year, didn't she?
Big time.
So, then he gets drunk, and he's, trying to basically figure out what to do with his life, because this is just going to go nowhere, and he's going to become a bum. He's practically homeless. He's getting ready to kill himself. And then he hears this song coming from the bar, and we have circled back around to him standing at the back of the bar as Keira Knightley performs her song. Well, now we cut, and we have Keira Knightley, whose boyfriend is Adam Levine.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there are 2 people from The Voice in this movie.
Wow.
Because apparently Ruffalo is boys with CeeLo, but that's a later plot point. Now, here's the thing. She has her thing with Adam Levine, but he's basically gonna, go tour with his band, and they're gonna, be apart, but they're both songwriters, and they both, write love songs about each other and stuff like that. Well, while he's away, there's really not much to this one. While he's away, she basically spends all her time with her friend that we saw her with earlier. And eventually they end up at the bar. Because, she's depressed because while Adam Levine was on his tour, he apparently fell in love with and wrote a song about somebody else that works for him. So they have broken up now, kind of.
Okay.
So she's in the bar sulking, and that's when her friend says, "Hey, my friend has a song." And that's once again when she plays the song and Ruffalo's there and sees her. So now we finally come to this point, and then the movie goes forward. Not a bad idea for a setup.
Not at all.
But now that we go in this direction, they get this idea. I did not realize how long it takes to set this movie up.
Yeah.
We are 8 minutes in right now. Jesus. Why don't I just take you all the way to the end?
Alright.
No, you can try to guess the ending once I get you to the major plot point. The trouble is Mos Def likes her, but not enough to record an album with.
Okay.
So Ruffalo says, "You know what? We'll just record an album. We'll just, and she's like, we don't have a studio, we don't really have much of anything, what are we gonna do?" So Ruffalo's idea is to basically, for them to go out, just walk around outside New York, and just record songs outside. Record the songs, and that kind of just has that weird title they're using, New York Melody. That's where that would come from, I guess.
Yeah.
So they're going to record her songs with the sounds of New York in the background. After they get a little ragtag band together. And that's what the rest of the movie is, basically, is just them performing the songs. And then it starts to look a little more like Once.
Nice.
No, not near that good.
Not much is.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this, really fell short. For starters, for a while there, I actually couldn't believe they were from the same person. But, it's not as bad as I'm making it sound right now, but when you have, and I know you shouldn't compare it to Once, because that's a really, really high bar, and you can't always expect somebody to just absolutely top their first thing, necessarily. Despite the fact that it happens a lot,
But it's Once.
Yeah, in this case, he didn't really even come close.
That sucks.
Basically from then on, it's a music montage. The trouble is, I remember most of the songs from Once.
Yes.
Off the top of my head,
It's not good.
every now and then you look around and people are discussing, you know, what beginning songs are going to run for the Oscars and stuff like that. And my only thought is, I don't remember the songs at all. I don't remember their titles. I don't remember how they went. Not one of them.
That's not a good thing.
Apparently the movie is getting a relatively good reaction. So people will remember the songs, but I don't remember anything. And that's a problem getting. That's the entire second half of the movie. Well, the last 2/3, really. And there are a couple of good scenes. There's one scene where he talks about how he and Catherine Keener used to bond with a headphone splitter, where they both could, you know, listen to the same song at the same time.
Yeah.
And he and Keira Knightley run around town doing this. And there's one scene that really stood out where they both have their headphones in, and they go to this club that's basically a rave, but they're listening to For Once in My Life by Stevie Wonder.
Nice.
While dancing with the people amidst this rave. I thought that was a really nice moment.
Definitely.
Yeah, the nicest musical moment in the movie is from an older song and not one of the original ones. That's telling for a story like this. But and there's the occasional directorial touch I like. There's one scene where I like the directorial choice where she's reminiscing and watching an old video of her and Adam Levine hanging out. And then we cut to it happening in real time. And we see the camera sitting there recording them. And then the scene plays out, and then she says, okay, I'm going to turn the camera off now. And when she turns the camera off, it cuts back to Keira Knightley sitting on the couch watching the screen. I thought that was a nice little edit. But for the most part, I didn't really think this worked. The whole Adam Levine subplot was stupid. And there was really no reason for it. Because it really just ends up back where it started. It had no purpose whatsoever, and there was really no character development with it at all. And all the stuff involving his character is basically just... It's a very cliched storyline. But that's not to say, you know, that the rest of the... Like, the good thing is that Ruffalo and Knightley are really good.
That's good.
Which is pretty much, if you want to see it, pretty much, you know, in my opinion, the reason to see it. I'm sure people will like the songs and maybe remember a few of them, but that wasn't me. There are some scenes that are just a little weird. You never quite know if there's going to be like a romance between them or not. They don't seem to be building towards that, but every now and then it looks like it might happen, but then there's always something coming from a different direction that makes it seem like that's not the case. There's one scene that's particularly odd where she's talking about, like, his marriage, and then he blows up at her and says, like, you know, you don't know what marriage is, you don't know what it's like to be married to the same person for, like, 18 or 20 years, and he just has this whole big outrage about it. And he says, you know nothing, and then he starts to walk away. And then she, from a distance we see, she runs up behind him and wraps her arms around his, like, from the back, and just kind of hugs him like that. And then in the next scene, they're all buddy-buddy again, and he's, like, telling her his entire life story. That was a weird way to kind of build the relationship between these two characters, but alright. So yeah, but I did like despite the fact that I hated her and the Adam Levine subplot, I did kind of like the, even though it's really, really cliche, and she already did that this year, I did like the estranged daughter bits with Ruffalo and Haley Steinfeld. And the relationship between he and Catherine Keener was really interesting to watch. The way how they're always that, you don't really know if they're still a thing or not, and if they're gonna, you know, become something or whatever. So it certainly has its moments, but overall I didn't care for it. Like I said, there were portions of it that felt like a chore. And it's definitely, absolutely not once. Not even close.
That's a shame.
Our second movie, I was cautious because as far as whether or not it was my type of movie, it's Tracks, which is the movie where Mia Wasikowska plays the woman who, it was 1977, and she trekked on foot 1,700 miles across the Australian desert to the Indian Ocean with 4 camels and her dog Diggity.
No doubt.
Oh, shut up. So, and occasionally she was assisted by a photographer for National Geographic, played by Adam Driver, who kind of pops in and out of her journey.
Like Walter Mitty?
Pops in and out of something else too later. But before we get to that, we see kind of how she built up to this journey. For a while there, she just tried to get kind of normal jobs. But there was like, for the most part, she couldn't because it was, the mentality of, oh, she can't do that because she's a woman, and she had to deal with that. So eventually it just came down to, this is pretty much the only thing she could do with her life. We're basically going to be watching this movie again in a few months, called Wild. This is a little different, though. I think. I wouldn't know, as far as Wild's concerned. But, basically, she's getting the money to do this from National Geographic, and they're going to make it a thing. But the downside is she has to be accompanied by this photographer. When basically what she's doing here is basically just getting this isolation that she's always wanted. It's a search for solitude, basically. So she's made a deal to where instead of constantly being accompanied by the photographer, they're just gonna have like little checkpoints where they made up, and he can do his thing and then leave. And she eventually meets another character that's, his name is Mr. Eddie, I think, who is an Aboriginal, and he's basically kind of her guide for the second half of the movie. That's also a really good character. And gave me huge Walkabout vibes, which is a really great movie if you can find it. The interesting thing about this movie is, obviously with a movie like this, one of the big things about it is going to be how it's shot. Because you have these like massive Australian desert landscapes, and they managed to shoot it in such a precise way that they really make. I think this is what stuff like Meek's Cutoff was reaching for, but it didn't work for a movie like that. But it does here. It really manages to like put you in there. Like when you're watching her make this journey, it makes you feel dirty and thirsty and tired. And when you get like a shot of the blue sky, it's a relief. And when you actually see, this movie makes water look so glorious. The scene where she finds water is like one of the most gorgeous shots I've seen all year. They really, really brought that. It was so blue and wonderful. And after you see the whole movie, it just makes it all worthwhile. They do manage to make the characters, I mean, she's kind of, standoffish, but she's likable enough to where she's a real powerful character, and you don't want to see her, die. You want to see her get through this, and my pen keeps going on. It's gonna dry out. So yeah, and the really interesting thing about this is that they say it's kind of exaggerated probably a little bit, but the impressive thing where you can basically make an animal act if you have the right trainer.
Yeah.
Diggity and the 4 camels are basically supporting characters here. Obviously they have to be, because for most of the movie it's just the 6 of them in the desert. And every time a camel's not gonna make it, it actually feels like you're losing a character in the movie. I was starting to get afraid it was going to be something kind of like the Way Back Peter Weir's movie. It should have been better than it was, with Colin Farrell and Saoirse Ronan and Ed Harris.
Yes, I remember that.
And another thing that made it really impressive was the director. The director had done, what was it? We Don't Live Here Anymore and Stone. The Ruffalo Naomi Watts movie and the De Niro Edward Norton movie. What's really interesting about that is how well shot this movie is and how it took full advantage of its setting. When you look at We Don't Live Here Anymore and Stone, they're really low-key movies set in really confined places. So this was a really interesting direction for him to go, and he pulled it off really well. I'm interested to see what else this director does.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I was worried because, there's only so much you can do as far as this is about an hour 45 of a woman walking through the Australian desert, and that's about it. There seems to only be so much you can do with it. But the pacing is surprisingly good, and there's really no places where it lags or drags on. See, I was really surprised with how I reacted to this. I actually liked it quite a bit. And obviously, Mia Wasikowska has this. I like her much better than I did a few years ago, with Alice in Wonderland and Jane Eyre, where she was practically putting me to sleep. With this and Only Lovers Left Alive and Stoker, probably a few other things I'm not thinking of. She's really starting to show how great she can be. I'm warming up to her the way I'm suddenly warming up to Olivia Wilde, basically. Not as much, but still. Because it's one of those ones where not only, do you need, the emotion and the drive, but, the physicality of this performance was probably quite taxing. And she just really completely went into it. And it comes through. So, and like I said, and you have that likability of Adam Driver to kind of pop up in those spots. Which was a really great casting choice because when you're, if you've seen, Girls and stuff like that, or most recently, What If, when you're walking through the desert and you know that Adam Driver's just going to pop up occasionally, there's kind of a comfort in that. Because he always has such this likability that comes off the screen. So yeah, this movie worked on pretty much all the levels it should have. So that was good, and a relief. Okay. Our third movie was brought to my attention a couple of weeks ago, where somebody made a post online, and it just said, so is this the worst poster you've ever seen? And I clicked on it, and it was a poster I had never seen before for this action movie called The Prince. I had never heard of it before, but it was this really poorly photoshopped, put together poster that had a little action scene going on down here, and it had Bruce Willis, John Cusack, and Jason Patrick with really bad photoshopped faces that all looked the same. There was a comment underneath that actually said, "Oh my god, their faces." So, I remembered this movie existed when I came across the second poster. And I swear to God, you can look it up. It was basically an exact copy of the poster for Killer Elite. An exact copy of it. Only instead, this is hilarious, instead of, who was in that movie? Jason Statham, Clive Owen, and De Niro. Instead of them, it was Bruce Willis, Jason Patrick, and Rain from Ninja Assassin. Somewhere between posters, John Cusack had disappeared.
Oh my god.
But his name was still on it. So I was like, okay, I've got to watch this piece of shit.
I hate Killer Elite so much.
So I sat down and I watched The Prince. And it was pretty much exactly what I expected it to be.
Oh man.
Okay, but here's the thing. As you can probably guess with straight-to-video movies like this, apparently it's getting a tiny, tiny, tiny theatrical release, here and there.
So it makes up the rules, so we're good.
Obviously, with a movie like this, you have Bruce Willis in the front, you got John Cusack on the side, and you got Jason Patrick hanging out back here. Of course, when you watch the movie, the star of the movie is
Jason
Patrick.
Patrick. I thought it was Rain, actually. That makes more sense.
That'd be funny.
Yes.
So the movie actually starts with Bruce Willis's character. Bruce Willis is our villain, actually.
Nice.
So,
it's a good start, at least, just hearing it.
Yeah. Kind of looking like he did in, Barry Levinson's What Just Happened, where he grew the beard and refused to shave it. Well, he's got kind of a gray goatee thing going on. And I feel like I reference this every week. Here it comes again. It felt like the opening scene of Face Off again.
My God.
You got Bruce, it's kind of grainy looking, so you know it's a flashback, and this happened in the past, and this is what's going to set up the plot. You got Bruce Willis, his wife, and his daughter. And it's his daughter's first day of school. And she's got her backpack on, and she's ready to go. And he's like, ooh, I've got a present for you, but you can't open it till you get to school. And then he's like, hey. And then they do the lovey thing, and he looks at his wife, and he's like, oh my God, my family is perfect. This isn't going to go wrong in a few seconds at all.
Not at all.
So they get in the car, they get ready to go to school, and it's a car bomb meant for him. They explode, and they die.
I was right. I was thinking that in my head it was going to be a bomb.
So, naturally, Bruce Willis says no, as all of his henchmen hold him back. And of course, it was Jason Patrick, who is like a super assassin, that put the bomb in there and was supposed to kill him, I think. Flash forward, Jason Patrick is on his, he's talking to his daughter via technology. His daughter is Gia Mendiga. Yes, Joe's daughter. So, they're talking, but she seems kind of down, like something's off. But he just lets it go and he hangs up. The super assassin is just gonna let it go that his daughter seems distressed. Lo and behold, very soon, like 5 minutes later, his daughter has vanished. Nobody knows where she is. So, of course, it hits him. This is revenge. Bruce Willis has her. But that's the interesting thing. Okay, yes. Technically, Bruce Willis has her. But we don't really see this. He just kind of assumes that, and there's really no proof to it. And we're just kind of supposed to go with it. And the entire first 45 minutes to an hour is he manages to track down her best friend, and they just go from place to place saying, where's my daughter? I don't know, ma'am, but you can check here. Okay. Where's my daughter? I don't know, ma'am, but you can probably check this place. And they just go from place to place until finally, I guess spoiler alert, like it matters. An hour into the movie, he just finds her. She's just hanging out with, another person in this movie that didn't make the posters. She's just hanging out with 50 Cent.
What?
Just in a club. He's basically holding her for Bruce Willis, basically. So, the problem is, we didn't really build up to this because we've already seen, in between Jason Patrick going from place to place looking to her, we cut to Bruce Willis. And he does his intimidating villain thing. There's a guy there that, like, owes him. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, man, I fucked up. And then he shoots him and the guy falls into a pool. And it's like, yeah, I'm the villain. What's up?
Oh, boy.
And he's talking to Rain, who is his main henchman.
Okay.
So, the main henchman made the second poster. So,
God, poor John Cusack.
I don't know anybody that remembers Ninja Assassin. I remember that dude getting, like, hit by the car. That's all I remember about Ninja Assassin. So, naturally, okay, here's one thing the movie didn't do. When we weren't seeing her with Bruce Willis, my first thought was, because here's the thing, in the middle of the movie they try to change it up. We get a shower flashback, where Jason Patrick is melancholy under the shower, and he's thinking back to the day Bruce Willis's family blew up. I'm sorry, I didn't say that without laughing. So he's thinking back, and we see, obviously in the first flashback, we saw him there, and then we saw the explosion. It's like, oh man, Jason Patrick just fucked his day up. But when we see it from Jason Patrick's melancholy perspective, it was the, oh my god, there's been a mistake. No, stop. Oh no, I couldn't stop the explosion in time. I'm not such a bad guy. And that's, when we saw that, I thought there was going to be, like, a third villain, and it was going to be, like, there was going to be that scene where he goes to Willis and says, you know, like, I just want you to know, man, that wasn't my fault. That wasn't my call. And then Willis is like, well, I fucking hate you, but I'll forgive you and we'll go after the real bad guy. That's what I thought it was going to do from there. Luckily, that's not the case. Despite the fact that it wasn't exactly what it looked like, Bruce Willis stays in villain mode through the whole movie. So, it could have been worse. But the trouble is I kind of wished that stupider ending had happened when I saw the climax. Because the climax for this movie is so idiotic. It's one of those climaxes where you have Jason Patrick down here, and up here on this second floor you have Willis, the daughter, and Willis has a gun to her head. And he threatens for about 10 minutes to shoot her in the head. It's like he says, you know, I'm going to count to 5 and then I'm going to shoot. And then like 15 minutes goes by and they're still talking. He threatens to shoot her at least 3 times. And then you have the scene where Jason Patrick is doing nothing to stop this. Willis just keeps saying over and over and over again, I'm going to shoot her, man, I'm going to shoot her. And then Jason Patrick's down here and he keeps saying, you know, I'm going to give you one more chance, you better let her go. And that's all he's doing to help this. I don't think he even has his gun drawn.
Probably not.
But no, with the stupidity of that confrontation, I kind of wish it had gone the other way a little bit. Because maybe we could have had a cooler confrontation. I thought maybe it could have been John Cusack, because I was like, well, we have a third big actor in this movie. Why isn't this, you know, what's his deal?
Yeah.
He's just a dude that helps them. That's all John Cusack does. And he doesn't even, like, he barely looks like John Cusack. It's like they hired a homeless guy that looked enough like John Cusack that would pass off. Because he looks like he just threw his wardrobe together. His hair's like in constant disarray. And he's just kind of saying the lines. Wow. It makes you wonder, I mean, what is the process for getting actors like Bruce Willis and John Cusack in a movie like this?
Luck?
I mean, okay.
A favor?
I don't know. But, you know, when you practically turn down Sylvester Stallone, who the fuck is the director of The Prince that Willis was like, oh, you know, okay, I'll work with this guy, sure. I've got nothing to lose, I'm Bruce Willis.
He's hard to deal with from what people say, so.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and the thing about Jason Patrick, okay. Jason Patrick can be great. Obviously, he's got the Lost Boys. He's practically frightening in Your Friends and Neighbors. In a darkly comedic way. I liked his campy villain in The Losers.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
There's a great movie called Rush with him and Jennifer Jason Leigh that's about drug addiction. He's got a lot... Narc.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of great parts. But here, I think he knows he's more or less in straight-to-DVD land. And he's trying to do the tough... He's really trying to do the tough guy thing. But the problem is when he's doing it, it's kind of like he's trying to talk tough to a guy, but his delivery makes it sound like he forgets what he's saying mid-line.
Oh, God.
And has to remember what his line is before he says it. That's the take that made it in. And it's one of those plots that's basically based totally on conveniences and coincidences.
Yeah.
Like I said, he eventually finds his daughter just by coming across her. While she's passed out on 50 Cent's couch. I'm sure a lot of daughters are feeling that way.
Yeah, pretty sure.
But yeah, it's a really dumb movie. It's you know what this movie needed? Nicolas Cage.
I was getting ready to say that, actually.
Nicolas Cage would have killed this. He would have made this worth watching. As is, it's not. Can you imagine how easy would that have been too?
No.
To just put Nicolas Cage in Jason Patrick's spot.
I'm sure he's not doing anything.
I'm sure it couldn't have been that hard.
Probably not.
But, I mean, I think about that. think about it this... I mean, even if it was this stupid movie, Nicolas Cage would have elevated it.
Oh, yeah, he always does.
Yeah. I mean, even like, Stolen, Rage, Cage can just do that. Now, can you imagine one of these... It would have been basically like another Nicolas Cage straight-to-DVD movie, like Seeking Justice, but with Bruce Willis as the villain.
That would have been great.
This movie could have been massive. Mm-hmm. Nothing against Jason Patrick, really. But, I mean, it could have done something.
Yeah, definitely.
But missed opportunity. We'll never see it again. Yeah, this will be... It's one of those ones where, like, the action scenes are, like, really, like, sloppy, and... These characters are supposed to be, like, highly trained super assassins, but they're just hanging out of cars and firing aimlessly at nothing while trying to chase Jason Patrick.
Good God.
All you need is one damn sniper, and this movie's over.
Yeah?
No. Send Rain after him. He and Rain have a nice fight at the end. But all Rain does is just follow Bruce Willis around. Whatever, fine. But no, this will be forgotten really soon, so... Yeah, I pretty much, now that this review's done, my brain will just probably naturally push it out of my head.
Possibly.
And I'll forget it exists. Like, sometimes I scroll down my list of, like, all the movies that I've ever seen, just to see if, there's movies where I, like, say, what is that? I don't even remember that.
Yeah, I'm sure that happens more often than not.
This will be one of those. I'll look at it and think it's, like, an Aladdin-type movie or something.
Might have been better.
So that's what that fun was. Like I said, that's pretty much what I was expecting, so, fine. Our next movie is another movie that was at TIFF, and it also, it ran for some British Independent Awards and won one. It's a British prison movie called Startup. That's S-T-A-R-R-E-D, not Startup. And it stars Jack O'Connell, who we're going to probably get to know a lot better when Unbroken is out.
Yeah.
But he's been in a couple things now. He was in the new 300.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays this, I think he's supposed to be 19. He's a juvenile prisoner. And the term startup is when he's a juvenile prisoner, but he is so violent and out of control that he's put in an adult prison. And he's basically playing like a young Bronson. There was some young Tom Hardy in this performance. I felt. And he is put in this adult prison that his father also happens to be in. His dad is Ben Mendelsohn, and Ben Mendelsohn won the British Independent Award for supporting actor. And there is a prison psychologist played by Rupert Friend who is in a few things, but most people probably know him from Homeland. So, and obviously his behavior starts to get the attention of like the bigger prisoners. There's a weird sudden subplot with this guy who's like basically like the godfather of prison. And he's also trying, and while that is going on, he's also, butting heads with his dad, obviously, because Middleton's character was never there for him and was never really like a father, so he's kind of trying to use that tough love now to kind of make up for it, and basically keep him from getting killed while he's inside. Now, the thing that the movie's getting the most attention for is Jack O'Connell's performance. Which is really impressive. I don't think he's not as young as he's supposed to be in the movie, but it's only like a couple of years difference. And he doesn't play it like as young as he is. It feels like a very mature performance, which is perfect for the type of role that he's playing, a young person in an adult prison. But the thing is I was comparing him to Tom Hardy and Bronson, but it's not totally like that, because Bronson was just completely and totally out of control. While this character also is, he also has like a, you can kind of tell on the inside he's kind of troubled and has like a vulnerability about him. So he's a multidimensional character, so that helps a lot. Because basically the whole movie is just watching him go through this prison system. The very first scene of the movie is him doing the Clockwork Orange process where he has to strip down and like squat over a mirror and all that degrading stuff. And he's one of those characters that's so... But despite that, he's still, you know, a totally vicious character. There's one standout scene that's kind of towards the beginning where he manages to somehow get his... he crouches down and puts his teeth on a guard and somehow manages through the pants to get a grip on the guard's dick with his teeth and uses this as a negotiation tactic. That's a pretty wild scene.
Indeed it is.
And that's just the start of it. And then, like I said, to balance that out, you have Mendelssohn's performance. Mendelssohn is really great here because just in general, he has this way about him. I'm looking particularly at Animal Kingdom. Ben Mendelsohn is one of those guys where if you just look at him, he's pretty unassuming. But he plays cold and relentless like nobody else. Most of his characters I would run away from as soon as I made eye contact with them. And that viciousness comes through here, but like I said, it's kind of a conflicted here because most of it is just that tough love towards his son that he never got to show this to, who he feels like he has to be this way towards to get through to him. Because even when you have the Rupert Friend character, who's basically... he's actually more on the side of the prisoners than the authorities. And he's kind of butting heads with Mendelssohn's character because he thinks he's kind of overdoing it and this isn't the type of treatment that he needs to, you know, come to terms with himself. But Mendelssohn's fighting back with that and saying, you know, he's a vicious person, you gotta be vicious back to him if you want to get anywhere with him. That conflict's basically what a lot of the movie is. On top of him basically getting, you know, getting into it with various other prisoners. There is a scene where he finds his head in a toilet that's full of shit. There's a scene where he is attacked in the shower. Just your average prison movie stuff. It's kind of going a bit for like an authenticity thing. There's no score or soundtrack. There's like a song like over the end credits, but that's it. Everything else is just totally just like the sounds of the prison. Which is effective, but the trouble is also another thing that kind of makes it hard to get a little, not that it's the movie's fault, but something that kind of made it a little hard to get totally into it was, this is one of those movies where maybe about half the time the accents are completely indistinguishable. Like, people will be talking and I don't hear anything. I hear them, but I don't really...
It's like Pikey.
We needed the subtitles, like on the Snatch DVD.
Yes.
I do love that it never leaves the prison. We always stay in the confines of the prison, which kind of adds to like a kind of a cabin fever feel to it. Yeah. But there's something... I really wanted to love this, and there was a lot of things that I did like about it, but there were some things where it just kind of... apart from the fact that it's got a lot of prison movie cliches, there's also this guard that's played by Sam Spruill, who's basically like the head, whatever, something. I don't think he's like a warden, but it's pretty much the closest thing. And he's like this, you have like the authenticity this movie's trying to do, but then by the end it starts to get really theatrical, and this guard character is basically like very, very movie villainy, which kind of seemed weird in the authenticity they created in the first hour. But they still throw some stuff in there, like it's interesting to see him bond with his cellmates and stuff like that. after he wrongfully beats the shit out of one and almost kills him. But then there's that stuff where, like, there's a lot of profanity, which obviously doesn't bother me, but I mean,
Yeah.
in this particular movie, the way they do it, like, literally constantly, I think it's supposed to give you, like, that hardcore prison feel.
Oz.
Yeah. Just to kind of, you know, put you in the midst of the hardcore nature of prison itself. But it didn't exactly, like, it got to the point to where it didn't feel natural. Like, it felt like they were trying to, like, surpass, what's the show everybody talks about? Was it Deadwood?
Something like that, yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Where they try and put it in there so much, it actually has the reverse effect and feels unnatural as opposed to authentic and prison-y. So, I've never been to prison. That could be wrong, but that's just how I felt while watching the movie.
Watch Oz.
But,
That's the closest word I'm going to get to prison. It's watching Oz.
yeah. Now, but yeah, there was the stuff that they're trying to do really authentically does work. There's one scene that's really hard to take towards the end where somebody gets stabbed. But the thing here is, the knife is pushed in really slowly. And that sound effect is haunting. That scene really stood out as something that felt real. Like, where the violence actually felt really real. Which is effective, which is another problem with the fact that a lot of the finale depends on a lot more theatricality than authenticity. And it's kind of an uneven balance there by the end. But it's still worth checking out, mainly for the great performances. So, yeah, I'm a little conflicted, but overall I'd say that's a mild recommendation at least.
I've been waiting for this next review for a bit.
Alright. Oh, God. Okay. Our next movie is called Mom's Night Out. The star of it is a woman I don't know. Her best friend is somebody I don't know. I only know the supporting cast. Some of them. I'm getting a bit of a headache from talking about this, and Mom's Night Out certainly is not going to help that headache at all.
Probably not.
Well, just by the title alone, you can probably tell what the story is. But I'll tell you anyway. You have the mom. The mom who's really, really hardworking. And her husband is Sean Astin. And he's one of those dads that's always on a plane. He's always here or there. So the mom has to stay home with the kids that drive her insane. She blogs about how much she, you know, loves them and wouldn't trade them for anything, but oh my god, they drive her insane. They draw on the walls, they, you know, destroy the kitchen. She's constantly afraid they're gonna die. She's one of those moms.
Overprotective.
So, one day, she sits down with Sean Astin, and she gives the big speech of how, when I was a kid, all I wanted was one thing. I wanted to be married to a great person, which I am, and I wanted to have children and be a mother, and I have everything I ever wanted in life, and oh my god, I am not happy at all. So, he suggests that she have a night just to herself. Which seems like a good enough idea, but we know that they're in a bad comedy, so probably nothing good will come of this.
Nope.
So she rounds up her friends. The first friend we meet is Patricia Hayden, who is her church-going buddy, who is basically her rock, her, what did she call her? A whole combination of people, but the two I remember most are Dr. Phil and Gandalf.
What?
Oh, if I had to guess, it's because Sean Astin's in the movie and they needed a little in-joke.
Maybe.
But here's the thing. She does this big introduction to Patricia Eaton's character and talks about how she's her rock. You know, she's the one that keeps her under control and she's everything. But then we're introduced to another character who's her best friend.
Alright.
Is there, okay, if Patricia Heaton does all that, what the fuck's the best friend do? But she's known the best friend since, you know, they were kids in school and stuff like that. She's the nerdy one of the group. She was as a kid and she is now. And her nerdy friend has one of the most unfunny characters in the movie. She's basically the catalyst to bring that character in. I'm talking about the character that is her husband. Her husband her husband's afraid of everything. But the two things her husband is especially afraid of: luchadors and bikers. Believe it or not, that does come back later. So...
I hope so, with something that obscure.
So, we're introduced to another character before this Mom's Night Out happens. This character, Bridget, who is Sean Astin's half-sister. I had to look at my notes for that one because I forgot. Because his name is Sean in the movie too, so that was confusing me.
Fair enough.
Bridget is one of those girls that has the piercings and the red streak in her hair, and she's a young mother, and she works at a bowling alley. Long story short, she's white trash. And we're introduced to her immediately. We have these cute little introductions where little animations come in where their name comes up and then things that represent them come up and all that.
Oh my god.
I guess it's her blog we're looking at. I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, that's basically her whole goal, is in hopes that she becomes a famous blogger. Ooh. So, we're introduced to Bridget, and here's the problem: is we do this big introduction where she says, "This is Bridget. This is Sean's half sister. She says awkward things and has no filter." And then we cut to her talking. The trouble with this introduction is when they cut back to her, she doesn't really say anything awkward or show off that she doesn't have a filter. She's just talking. That didn't go the direction I was going, is the point I'm getting at.
Pretty much.
But whatever. The thing about Bridget is somehow, some way, the movie finds a way to make the plot about her. But we'll get to that gradually. Well, for starters, we do the thing, okay? And we do everything that you're expecting, because we're in this wake now. This post-Bridesmaids wake. Where every movie wants to be the ultimate women movie or something. Because apparently everybody thinks that's like a thing, where it's like, there's not enough female-driven comedies, we must make one and then remake it over and over and over and over again and make it worse and worse as we do so. And this is probably the worst we've gone so far. And it has all the stuff you're expecting in it. Like, they do the thing where, they're standing in a line down the sidewalk and they walk in slow motion to like a pop song. And of course, they're driving down the road and they put music on and they're dancing because this is how they loosen up. This is what you do. You drive down the road with your music and you dance around. And of course, you have to have Patricia Heaton is the one where obviously you have the three and they play the music loud and they're dancing around while they drive around. And Patricia Heaton's the one in the backseat going, oh my god, it is like so loud. Tells you everything you need to know that her character's going to do for the rest of the movie. She's the one who can't dance in public. She's the one who doesn't want to make a fool of herself. But, oh, wouldn't you know it, she was like wild at Woodstock and has a tattoo. Oh my god, shocking.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know. So
this is bad just listening to it.
So, oh, you should watch it sometime.
I'm not sure I ever will.
Oh, and she gets tased. Because that's still funny. So, anyway, even a movie as great as Pain and Gain couldn't make the taser funny. But
it was funnier.
Everybody still uses it, though.
Yeah.
And they still think it's this great thing. She does the mugging and the flopping around on the floor. The whole taser thing.
It works in Jackass.
Yeah, because it's fucking real.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't see them going, on the floor. You see them jumping around screaming obscenity.
Yes, it's brilliant.
You think Jackass is popular enough now that people would take notice and realistically portray it.
Oh.
But whatever. Okay, so, they, obviously their night goes wrong immediately because they go to this big fancy restaurant where they have big reservations, but oh no, the reservation isn't there because the main character wants to be known as a famous blogger and wants to be known for her writing, but doesn't know the difference between this Saturday and next Saturday when she's making a reservation.
What?
She told them next Saturday, so they booked it for the next Saturday, but she says, no, I meant next Saturday as in the Saturday that was coming.
Oh my god.
So that is our first problem. That is why they don't have the reservation, and the hijinks can start. Wonderful. So, they do wacky things like end up in a tattoo parlor, and they decide they're gonna go bowling.
That's wacky.
Mm-hmm. So, well, the other girls kind of make fun of her by saying, hey, night out, we're bowling.
Are they drinking?
So, no, because one of them thinks she might be pregnant. Of course. Well, I watched a lot of movies this week. Let me make sure. I'm pretty sure that was this movie.
Oh, man.
Yes, it was the nerdy one.
Oh.
Yes, it was the nerdy one because she sat down and started eating at the bowling alley. And just by the absurd food she was eating, Patricia Heaton leaned in and said, so what do? I can tell by what you're eating. Yes, it was definitely this movie.
Oh,
okay,
God.
We're good to go. Now, speaking of babies, it is right here at this bowling alley that the movie suddenly goes in and decides to do another plot. Like I said, Bridget is a waitress here. And it turns out that when they went to... Okay, well, here's the thing. Bridget had a baby with this guy. His name was Joey, I think. I don't know why I remember that.
That is random.
Joey was at the restaurant with another girl when they went to get the reservation they didn't have. Which means since Joey doesn't have the baby and Bridget doesn't have the baby, they don't know where the baby is now. So that's what the rest of the movie is, of them going and searching for Bridget's baby. That's what the rest of the movie is. And they end up at a tattoo parlor where they meet a biker.
Dear Lord.
You know who it is, because you told me he was in the movie.
Yeah, I do know who it is. It's in the trailer, too.
A biker named Bones, played by Trace Adkins. Much to your chagrin, Celebrity Apprentice winner Trace Adkins.
Stolen from Penn. Not even fair.
So, he's going to help them find the baby. Now, there's another thing going on here. Now, as if we haven't built up all the cliches enough, putting the sexes in their rightful place. The stay-at-home mom and the dad that's always out working. Now that the moms are having a nice out, it's the guys' jobs to watch the kids.
Oh no!
And wouldn't you know it?
Turns into daddy daycare.
The guys, they're so incompetent, they don't know what they're doing. She keeps having fantasies about what's going on at the house, and it's like, a war zone practically. They're driving all around the neighborhood. This movie is PG. This movie is PG and faith-based. Yeah, that comes in later. You didn't know that. I didn't know that watching. You probably didn't know that hearing me describe it. Suddenly it's a faith-based movie, but...
The Identical's the same way.
It's PG and it's a faith-based movie. And there's a pedophile joke in it. Because they're driving around in this van and they've got the kids in it.
Gee.
Now, of course, it's not their kids. They're the friends of Sean Astin.
Mm-hmm.
And they're driving around in this van and they end up getting pulled over. And the guy opens the door and sees the two guys in there with the kids. you know where this is going, obviously.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the joke happens where, you know, are either of these men your daddy? No, of course not. Then it turns into a joke to where she makes it sound like they killed her mom. I don't even know where that came from, but...
What?
I'm surprised somebody didn't get tased again, but you can probably guess. Yes, this is yet... I don't know how many of these we're going to have, but this is yet another comedy where all the main characters end up in jail.
My face is priceless if you guys can't see it right now.
I guess that is just the comedy rule now. That has to be how your movie's climax starts.
And you have to have a doppelganger.
Well, we didn't have any of those this week.
Give it time.
So, now here's the thing. There were a couple of funny lines in this movie. There's the scene where, obviously Patricia Heaton's the uptight one. So when she's at the bowling alley, they're regularly bowling and then it just randomly turns to laser bowling. Sweet. Which I wasn't going to give it credit for because that's happened to me before.
Yeah?
I think you were there too.
I was.
It was just like, oh, I guess this is laser bowling now. Okay.
Turn on the loud music.
And she's walking away. Now, we gotta throw in a trend. So that fucking song comes on. You know...
Gangnam Style?
The Nut Job. Yes. So...
Don't ever quote the Nut Job.
And they put a camera on her called the Dance Cam. And of course, she's the uptight one. So this is wacky. But she doesn't do it. She just runs away in fright. And I did get a laugh because the announcer's like really into it. He's like, oh, we got somebody on the dance cam, do it. And then she like freaks out and runs away. And as she's running away, we hear him over the intercom say, ma'am, you are an embarrassment. I thought that was funny. And there's another funny joke, but trouble is it does the ultimate comedy sin. The funny joke that I thought was, they're in the tattoo parlor and they're trying to find Bones. Because apparently Bones knows where the baby is. He doesn't. But they devote a lot of time trying to do this. So she finally just snaps and says, now, if you don't tell me where Bones is right now, I'm going to call the police. And all the guys in the tattoo parlor getting tattoos hear, I'm going to call the police, and they get up and run out of the building. I thought that was funny.
That is kind of funny.
They fucked it up, though. They did it twice.
What?
I know. It always happens. When a bad comedy throws one good joke at you, they know how good it is, and they fuck it up by doing it twice, and it's just not the same.
It's like Seth Green in his Amish getup in Sex Drive. It would have worked if it was only once, but nope, they had to bring it back.
So, that was unfortunate. Now here's a big problem with this concept. They think it's funny, but, no, wait, before I say this, there's one more funny line. There's this whole thing, this is how they end up getting pulled over in the van. They recognize the van and her husband, so they ask, Trace Agnes' character to go after the van. And tell him, hey, we're here and we need help. But remember, he's afraid of bikers.
Yep. So
he drives off, and he's chasing them. Then the cops see him speeding. They go after him. And they're supposed to be following Trace Agnes' character, so he goes off somewhere else, and then they follow him. And then finally they get stopped. And it was just his delivery. It was really funny. He gets off the bike, and they pull over and they ask what happened, and he just says, I'm sorry about what happened back there, but when I see those police lights, I just go crazy. I have a checkered past. It was his delivery of it that worked really well. But the problem here is, they think it's being funny, but it really just renders the whole movie even more pointless than it already was. Long before this search is over, we know where the baby is. Because we see, like, a really happy next-door family just taking care of it. It was dropped off to them. Now, it's supposed to be funny that for the rest of the movie, we're watching them go on this wild goose chase when we, the audience, know where the baby is. But that's not really how it works.
No.
At least in this case. That's like, to use an example of a movie you hate, another movie that used the taser stupidly. It'd be like watching The Hangover knowing the whole time Doug was on the roof. There's just no point.
Well, there was no point anyway, but I understand what you're coming from.
But no. So the entire last 45 minutes of this movie is them looking for a baby that we, the audience, know where it is. So there's really no enjoyment to be had, even if there was to begin with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now here's the thing. Like I said, from out of nowhere, in the last 20 minutes, it turns into one of those faith-based movies. Where everything is suddenly about all the things in this movie happen, Trace Adkins tells us, is because it's God's plan. And they talk about praying and how the good Lord put them in the places they're in because that's just what they were going to do. And this comes from out of nowhere. If it had been one of those movies where that's the recurring theme that we've been seeing a lot lately,
Yeah.
fine. It would have made the movie a little less harmless, because you know there's kind of a sincerity in those movies.
Yeah.
Even if they're terrible.
Correct.
This just seemed to just... Which I should have known, because Patricia Heaton's husband is played by Alex Kendrick, the guy that made Facing the Giants in those movies. All those faith-based movies. So, he's the guy that's actually not bad at it. His movies are okay. I think he might have directed Fireproof. I can't remember. I think he did. But yeah. And, you know, of course, it's one of those movies where it's basically constantly advertising, you know, Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest. All of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those movies. It's gotta be hip, you know. So... now, obviously, let's go ahead and put this on the table now. Naturally, this movie is going to get compared to, The Single Moms Club.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what everybody thought of when we heard about this movie. It's not that bad. It's not Single Moms Club bad. It's bad. This movie's really, really, really bad.
But it's not Single Moms Club bad. That's a new level of bad right there.
Because The Single Moms Club was making me... Okay. The ending of this movie is Single Moms Club bad.
Oh.
Where they, when they're looking for this baby, by the end of the movie, we have an army of cops and an army of bikers working together to find them.
There's no luchadors? Such a letdown. They could have done something.
That might have come back, but I don't remember where. So, yeah. It wasn't until the end, with the army of cops and bikers, where it got bad, like angry bad. But up until then, it was just... It's one of those movies where it was just boring to me because of how unfunny it was.
Ugh.
So, you know, there's that. Maybe in a way you can say Single Moms Club is better because it made me angry as opposed to just bored, but... no, I think Single Moms Club's just a little worse. Because it had a whole lot of other problems that, you know... that aren't even in this movie, so... but of course, you know, if you want to keep the fun going, I didn't stick around, but this is one of those movies where, like, there's still a whole bunch of shit going on while the credits go. But...
You're like, I want to get out of here.
Yeah, that's your problem. It's okay. Our last movie is Belle. If you know me... If you've maybe seen some of these, I don't know if I've talked about one yet or not, I'm sure I have at some point. But if you know me, you know that I just love period costume dramas. They are my bread and butter.
You've never actually done a review for one on the camera. I think I did the review for a couple of them back in the day.
Well, okay. What Belle is Belle actually had a lot of things going for it.
Okay.
Going into it. And it's apparently really well liked by critics. Which is baffling to me, but let's get through this so I can get out of here. We start in England in 1769, and we meet Matthew Good. No, Matthew Good does not last. This is his only scene.
Drat.
We see this movie does have a lot of people in it that I didn't know were in it though. So Matthew Good appears and he's Matthew Good. Hello. And now I want to watch Stoker again. Bring me Wasikowska back.
Yes.
Okay, so she's done enough costume dramas for my liking.
Yes.
So anyway, he's here. I'm finally getting to the plot now. I'm so caught up in Matthew Good right now. he's the only good thing about it. Okay, now that that's out of the way.
Hey, I didn't do it this time, guys. He did.
Okay. He has an illegitimate black daughter.
Okay.
And he is basically bringing her to stay with his family because he is going off to war. But naturally, they are stuffy British white people. So they see that she's black, and they're, I don't know how many times the word Negro is in this movie, but a lot. It's only PG. It couldn't be Django or anything.
Yeah.
So regardless, racism is actually just one of the elements of this movie, but this movie really, really dropped the ball because it had a lot of things that could have made it really good, and didn't use them. But let's go a step at a time, because there's a whole lot of story here. It's a true story too, by the way. So, her name is Dido, and she grows up with her cousin, I think it is, and everything is fine. We don't really get to know her character very well because we see her as a child, and Matthew Good brings her here. His father is Tom Wilkinson, and it's the one that's going to be taking care of her. And basically all she does is she's brought here, and then she frolics in the flowers with her cousin, and then we cut to 10 years later. And she is an adult, but Matthew Good never came back. She still hasn't seen him since. But he said, I promise I'll be back. It's his own fault for saying that.
Yeah.
She gets a letter 10 years later to find out that he is dead.
Well, of course, he went off to war. That's what happens.
But he left her an inheritance. So she may be looked down on because she's black in this white family, and the fact that she's illegitimate. But she's now an heiress. So she's at their level now. But the trouble is with her illegitimacy and her race, even though she's on their level, she has the problem of she's too high in class to dine with the servants, but she's too low to dine with the family. So she's like in this limbo territory where it's just fuck her completely. She just does not matter in any realm whatsoever. And there are a lot of different things you can do with this. Naturally, it's time to find potential suitors.
Mm.
But obviously, that's another interesting thing, because you have things coming from different directions. Like, you have potential suitors who are really excited because, she's attractive and she's an heiress and she's rich. Then you have the racist suitors who want nothing to do with her. This is when we meet Miranda Richardson and Tom Felton, who are not Malfoy and Rita Skeeter now, but mother and son. So no Jason Isaacs to be found here, unfortunately. Or Helen McRoy, unfortunately, as well. So, but anyway, so many different great things you can do with this plot.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of stories here to be told. And if that's not enough good material for you to work with, there's a side plot where Wilkinson is involved with the ship Zong, which was basically they went on trial because it was a slave ship.
Yeah.
And basically there was a law to where they thought they could basically use a loophole and say that the slaves were just cargo, and they didn't have enough to feed the people on the boat and the slaves. So they took 150 slaves and threw them overboard and drowned them. And they're being put on trial for that. Another great story to tell in this movie.
Yeah.
It's got so much going for it. Well, while all these plot elements are in there, the main focus is Dido and this potential suitor, and they don't like each other right away. It is not love at first sight. They can't stand each other. But oh, gradually they will fall in love. And this is what we focus on amidst all these other great story points. It becomes one of those movies. And they all converge for a big, gigantic climax. But more importantly, it's all about, I don't care if you're black, I don't care if you're an heiress, I want you like nobody has ever wanted anybody before. And everybody has to sit around and go, oh, but she's a Negro, oh my God. Every single time somebody walks into a room, they say something like that. And then they made Felton such this caricature. He's doing it's the Malfoy thing, it's the Dodge Landon thing all over again. It is the exact same character. He's just racist now. So, like I said though, with like the mudblood thing from Harry Potter and the being against the apes and Rise of the Planet of the Apes, he's basically been playing a racist his whole life.
Yeah, pretty much.
But now he's playing a real racist. And there's this one, and they just make... I'm getting real... It's funny that Jason Isaacs played his dad, because I'm getting real, like... It's like Jason Isaacs in The Patriot, kind of over-the-top villainy. Like, he, there's this really funny scene where they're like out there and he's like, this is the word they use, manhandling her. And he like grabs her by the arm and hurts her and she says, how dare you? And he gets up in her face and says, with ease.
Wow.
You're scaring me, Felton. So, and then she goes and tells on him. And it's one of those movies you can tell it's a really, really masterpiece theater type of thing here. So the way she describes it is, he grabbed me in the most, he laid his hands on me in the most ungentlemanly fashion. It's like it's a parody of costume dramas.
It's like something Maggie Smith would say in a movie.
Yeah. She's missing from this, really. She might have been busy doing, like, My Old Lady or something.
Too much Potter stuff anyway. They couldn't have added her in there as well.
No, they don't. It's pretty much impossible to make a British movie without having more than one Potter actor.
That's a very good point.
Alright, so, now here's another problem that I had. I mean, it's nice and everything that, you know, Belle's one of those characters that can really... Yeah, they call her Belle, but I don't really know how that... Her name is Dido Lindsay. But, like, Belle is in there sometimes. I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, her character is, like, constantly doing that thing. I imagined a whole bunch of, like, you know, Jane Austen book club people sitting the people in the theater when we saw Austen Land.
Yes.
I pictured, like, a whole room full of those people watching this movie and loving it while I was watching it. Because Dido is one of those characters that even though she's walked all over because of her illegitimacy, her class, and her race, she's quick to not let people walk all over her. So anytime somebody like degrades her, she like does a "don't go there, girlfriend" line to everybody. And the thing that it's really hard to buy that she needs to be like sympathized for.
Yeah.
When she's not even like, and we're supposed to buy, you know, that she's walked over by people, but pretty much every time she talks to somebody, it's like she's doing one of those, you know, I can stand my ground lines. Talk to the fucking hand lines. Okay, we get the point now. She's, you know, whatever. But, yes, but mainly, the main obstacle in the movie, despite all of this, is the hilariously one-note racist, and the guy that she doesn't like, but she kind of loves. And that's what they focus on. And those great plots kind of come in and out. But it's mostly downplayed by all that, you know, cliche, lovey dialogue bullshit. What I would really, really like to see is all of these stories in one epic story as like a Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
I think Spielberg would have owned this.
Certainly.
He already kind of did the Zong storyline with Amistad. And the race stuff with Lincoln.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the trial scene reminded me of, with like the waiting and all that. But we just have another throwaway period drama piece of crap that the critics apparently love anyway. So I guess if it's your thing, you'll love it. Like I said, I imagine a theater full of people into this kind of stuff, I'm sure, would just eat it all up. So whatever floats your boat. Just don't throw anybody off of it. That's it, apparently.
Alright, one more time. Let's run them down. Begin again.
No, I'm sure people will like it, but it wasn't. I didn't care for it.
Tracks.
Yeah.
The Prince.
No.
Startup.
Yeah, it's alright.
Mom's Night Out.
No, please don't.
Belle.
No, I won't recommend it, but I'm sure people who are into that would definitely take to it. So.
Well, with that, in September, and we will head to one more Versus, which actually is going to be this coming Sunday. And don't worry, you'll have more theme park content, because like I've been giving you guys every single day on this vacation. I will state right now that come October when I return, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff that we haven't talked about yet. A lot of the releases, stuff like the Maze Runner and the Box Trolls and
The Equalizer.
The Equalizer's definitely in there. Definitely very excited to be able to see Gone Girl this coming weekend. Well, next weekend, sorry. Forgot what day it was.
A lot of things on it.
That's definitely on there as well. So we've got a lot of things. We've got about 8, 9 things that we need to watch before when the next video comes out. Plus, we're also going to hit up the next installment of our Academy Awards predictions. That's coming up soon as well. So stay tuned to Pop to check out more theme park content throughout this week as I'm getting ready to go home in a couple days. And, of course, continue to watch Ashley's stuff on Saturday. And, like I said, more Versus coming. So, AJ, any parting words?
That's it.